This movie probably would have been a lot better if it didn't have the unfortunate circumstance of the story that it is based on becoming so much more interesting like 2 years after the film came out. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and my ongoing quest to review every single movie Robin Williams ever made. This week I am looking at the 2006 psychological thriller, I guess? I don't think that really describes this movie very well. It is called The Night Listener, directed by Patrick Stettner, who directed The Business of Strangers with Stockard Channing and Julia Stiles, which was very well received. He also directed this, which was not as well received, and has not directed any other film since. The Night Listener stars Robin Williams as Gabriel Noon, a popular gay New York City radio show host who is given a memoir that is about to be published written by a gay teenager who was abused by his biological family, and he develops a over-the-phone relationship with the boy and then starts to sort of suspect that the situation revolving the boy and his new foster mother is not what it seems. So this also stars Toni Collette, who plays the foster mom, Sandra Oh, Rory Culkin, and Bobby Cannavale. The Night Listener is based off of a novel by Armistead Maupin, who is one of Robin's friends of 30 years and was actually, he knew him at the time that this was going on. So basically what happens in the movie, and this is going to be, I guess, spoiler ridden because it's based on true events. This novel was published, it was fully published, and it was written by this boy who had been given HIV because his biological parents were like doing these horrible abusive sexual things to him. And he was very sick. When he would talk on the phone with the boy and then with his mother, he noticed that the voices would sound similar. And there began to be a lot of suspicion surrounding whether or not this child even existed or they were a person that the mother made up and was using for their own personal gain. So we will get more into that story as well. But when Armistead received the memoir, it included an afterword by Mr. Rogers, so he had no reason, no one had any reason to doubt the credibility of this novel at the time. Robin said that Armistead became obsessed with the idea of finding out who this person was. The Night Listener itself is a more fictionalized account of what happened with this boy, and the film is an even more fictionalized account of the fictionalized account because it just goes up to the next level of crazy. The fun facts about the film itself: it premiered at the Sundance Festival that year. Rory Culkin and Robin do have the same birthday. In an interview for the film, Robin said he knew that he could access these dark parts of himself during the cancellation of Mork and Mindy, which is interesting, and the drinking years, as he referred to it in an interview, right before this film came out. And it's interesting to note that this film came out in wide release about 4 days before Robin went into rehab for alcohol in 2006. The story of Anthony Godby Johnson, or Godby Johnson is the name of the boy. I feel like this movie should have been tailor-made for me because I love content about liars. I love content about people who are crazy and lie and how they get away with it and fictionalize people. Like, I love the Fyre Fest documentary. I love just any story like that, like the Elizabeth Holmes stuff. Any story where someone lies and lies and lies and their lies finally get exposed. But it's so interesting just to see like the shit that people will come up with, partially because I have experienced something like that myself. In the novel, the character comes to the conclusion that his relationship with this child is worth more than what it would take to investigate. And that is not how the movie goes because Robin fully shows up to this town and ruins a lot of shit. The setup of the film is not great. So it begins with Bobby Cannavale, who plays Robin Williams' character's partner of like 8 years, isn't living with him anymore. You kind of get into why, but you don't really get to know a lot of the characters very well. The setup of the backstory just isn't very well done. I was very confused on a lot of what was happening in the first like half hour or so. Immediately within the first scene that Sandra Oh's character is introduced, an Asian slur is used and she uses it back as a joke, and that was not fun. Toni Collette, of course, has a wonderful performance in this. I mean, she's always good. It's not her best performance, it's not her most nuanced performance either because you basically know from the beginning that she's lying, so there's almost like nothing to reveal. And Robin's character in general is kind of this old grump who cannot see anything past the way that he feels. So he's been talking about his partner's like illness and the way that he is dying on the air for like 8 years and doesn't understand why the partner might be offended by that. People explain to him how they are feeling about things, or when his partner is like, hey, it's pretty obvious that that guy's voice sounds just the same as his mom's voice. This is a little fishy. And he just yells at him and like yells him out of the house. He also goes over the top. So he goes to this town to try and visit them, and he finds out that like the address that he has been receiving the mail from is from one of those outposts where you can pay to not use your real address or whatever. But he's breaking into hospitals, getting arrested, getting tased, going above and beyond, breaking the law, and just, I don't know, he's not a very likable character, and the role ultimately could have been played by anyone. Like, there's not any special Robin nuance that he brings to the role, except for this one scene where he's on the airplane to this town, and a flight attendant comes up to him and is like, I listened to your show, thank you so much for all you've done for us, like us being like the gays. And Robin like does this very solemn nod. It's very soft. It's very genuine. It's very telling. Like, in that moment, Robin Williams shines through that part. And like, that's the moment, that was very sweet. That moment made the movie for me, I think. But ultimately, the film only follows the case up until he doesn't even prove that the boy doesn't exist. He just proves that she is lying because she just like, you know, she'll conveniently say, oh, he's sick, you can't see him. Oh, he's dead, you can't see him. I'm not gonna let you see him. Like I said, this movie has the unfortunate circumstance of the case becoming much more interesting after its release. So at the time of the film's release, it was still kind of up in the air. Like, people were skeptical about the existence of this person, but they thought maybe that he, you know, he could have existed, or just that the details could be muddled. The story was reported on by 2020, I think in 2007, so the year after this came out, which revealed that the photo of Anthony that his foster mom had sent to his supporters was a childhood photo of a man named Steve, who is now a healthy adult and a New Jersey traffic engineer who was like, what the fuck, that's my childhood picture. Also worth noting that Vicki Johnson is the real name of this crazy bitch that Toni Collette plays, but she married this guy named Mark Zackheim, who was a child psychologist, indicted for abusing child patients, at least 3 times. He was also sentenced to prison on felony charges for aiding and abetting healthcare fraud for a bunch of shit not even related to this Anthony Godby Johnson thing, but he died before his jail time was served. Vicki Johnson is dead as well, and after her death, everybody noticed that all communication with this Anthony kid seemed to just stop, which basically proves that he was fake. There was only like a couple people, I think, who were hanging on, but I would so much rather see this as a documentary about this case done now with everything that we know than to see it as this fictionalized account where not even everything that happened is true, because the guy who wrote the book never went to the town to try to prove anything, I don't think. So, and he certainly never broke into a hospital and scared the shit out of some random cancer child. It's not a bad film. It's not like poorly made or anything, so I don't necessarily say that I would be like, oh my god, steer clear of The Night Listener. Like, it's fine. If you want just like an interesting, if you don't know anything about the story going in, if you want something interesting that is decent enough and has some decent actors in it, I mean, give it a watch. Like, it's not going to be a waste of your time. It just kind of is unfortunate that the most interesting things about it are not in the movie. The Night Listener grossed $10.6 million on a $3 million budget, which is pretty good. The New York Times called it a well-meaning, flat-footed screen adaptation that has its moments but shrinks a rich, strange story to the dimensions of an anecdote, which I agree with very wholeheartedly. The San Francisco Chronicle said it had lots of heart with no heartbeat, but it has intelligence and integrity and cannot be dismissed, although it was generally not regarded as a good adaptation of the book. And it's weird that it also, I'm sure a lot gets lost in translation, because this is a film adaptation of a book that is an adaptation of a true story that is based off a book. Like, it's just, there's so many layers of what's going on. So I can see where the errors happen. I'm begging someone to make a documentary about this. And if there is one that y'all know about, please send it my way. But if you're interested in watching The Night Listener, you can watch it on Pluto TV for free with a couple of ads. You can also watch it through Paramount Plus or Amazon with a Paramount Plus subscription. You can also pay to rent it in all the usual places. Next week, I am deep in the throes of shit. But it is shit that I love. Oh, my friends. It is RV. I am hopefully bringing on a guest for RV. It's one of my favorite films from childhood, even though I know that it's garbage. So make sure you stick around for that shitstorm, which is a very funny joke if you've seen the film, but if not, it's not going to mean anything to you. Go watch some other thing that Toni Collette is in. I don't know. Give some love to Toni Collette today. I guess she deserves it.